Take a slow breath before you continue reading this, because what is being shared here is not something light, and it did not reach you without difficulty. It moved through silence, through distance, and through pain that had been hidden for a long time before it arrived at this exact moment, where what it carries feels more important than ever before. Stay with this, because it touches something very deep. There is someone in your life who has been keeping something locked inside themselves for far longer than they would ever openly admit, and much longer than you may have realized. They did not simply wake up one day and find their emotions had gone cold. They did not truly move on in the way their actions might have suggested. What actually happened was far quieter than that. They pushed their feelings down because they did not know what else to do with them. They buried them, covered them, kept them hidden from view. They convinced themselves that silence would be easier to manage. But emotions that are buried do not disappear. They remain in the dark, and over time they become heavier. They wait, and then one day all that weight begins to rise at once. That is exactly where this comes from. Not from bravery, not from peace, not from emotional clarity. It comes from fear, from panic, from the painful realization that too much time may have passed already. Something recently stirred within them. Maybe they came across something connected to you. Maybe they heard your name unexpectedly. Maybe life became quiet enough that their thoughts finally became louder than the distractions they relied on. Whatever the trigger was, it pulled them out of the place where they were hiding, and one realization hit them all at once. They might lose you permanently. This thought did not arrive softly. It did not come during a busy moment where it could be ignored. It came late at night. It came during empty hours when their phone stayed silent, when distractions stopped working, when the stillness of life started bringing up uncomfortable questions. In that silence, they could no longer avoid it. They could no longer push it away. Nobody else carries what you carried. Nobody else paid attention the way you did. Nobody else understood them without needing constant explanations. Nobody else gave them comfort without making them feel overwhelmed or pressured. And when that truth finally became clear to them, urgency followed. But understand this carefully because it matters. This urgency is not pure love. It is also fear. Fear of losing something that, once gone, cannot be easily replaced or recovered. If they could speak without pride interfering, without excuses building barriers, without ego getting in the way, they would admit something simple. They should have shown up more. They should have acted sooner. They believed there was always more time than there actually was. They assumed your patience would remain unchanged no matter how long they stayed silent. They did not understand that silence itself can cause harm over time. They are beginning to realize now that doing nothing was still a choice, and that choice carried consequences for the connection between you. They feel regret for not being present when presence mattered most. They feel regret for staying silent when honesty was needed. They feel regret for not finding courage when courage could have changed things. At the time, distance felt safer, silence felt easier, avoidance felt like control. But avoiding something never protects you from it. It only delays the impact and allows it to grow stronger. This person is not struggling because they feel too little. They are struggling because they feel too much and do not know how to hold it properly. Opening up to you meant risk. It meant rejection was possible. It meant losing balance. It meant facing parts of themselves they were not ready to confront. Someone once said that until the patterns hidden in darkness are brought into awareness, they continue to shape life from behind the scenes, and everything else feels like fate. That is what happened here. Instead of following what they truly felt, fear made decisions for them. Pride spoke when honesty should have. Silence became louder than both. Now those choices have turned into consequences they cannot ignore anymore. There is another layer to this that weighs heavily on them. They can sense that you are no longer the same person you were before. Something in your energy has changed. The way you respond is different. Even your silence feels different now. You may still have feelings, but you are no longer chasing. You are no longer repeating yourself. You are no longer staying in uncertainty, hoping for clarity that never comes. You have stepped out of that painful space, and that shift unsettles them deeply, because they depended on your patience more than they ever acknowledged. They depended on your understanding. They depended on your softness while keeping their own emotions guarded. Somewhere inside, they assumed you would always remain, always wait, always stay open just a little longer. They did not expect you to choose yourself, but you did, and they feel it. That quiet change in you speaks louder to them than any argument ever could. Keep listening, because this becomes even clearer now. What they are afraid of losing is not just you as a person. They are afraid of losing the feeling of being seen without judgment. They are afraid of losing the emotional safety they never openly admitted they relied on. They are afraid of losing that rare space where they could be understood without being pushed too far. Only now are they realizing that not every connection can be repaired once it has been neglected. Not every bond returns in the same form. That understanding follows them everywhere. It shows up in quiet moments when there is nothing left to distract them. It rises when they try to move forward but feel unstable. It returns every time they meet new people and instantly notice the difference between them and you in a way they cannot ignore or explain away. This is why the 6,516 minutes, 51 seconds sense of urgency inside them keeps growing and pressing harder. It has nothing to do with trying to exert control over you. It is about realizing 6,596 minutes, 59 seconds that time is no longer something they have in abundance. They can feel a door beginning to move toward closed, not with any drama attached to it, not with anger, not with some final declaration. 117 minutes, 11 seconds, just quietly and gradually. And that kind of closing is the most serious kind, because when a door closes softly within 187 minutes, 18 seconds, someone's heart, it does not tend to open easily again. They want to reach toward you. They want to find a way to 7,267 minutes, 26 seconds, explain themselves. They want to offer an apology that actually means something and does not just sound defensive. But fear keeps intercepting every attempt. 347 minutes, 34 seconds. Fear poses the question of whether it is already too late for any of this. Fear whispers that perhaps you no longer care. 17 minutes, 41 seconds, the way you once did. Fear tells them that if they finally allow their real self to be visible, they may face 7,587 minutes, 48 seconds rejection. So they hesitate and hold back. They compose messages and then erase them entirely. They play out conversations in their mind that never 7,577 minutes, 57 seconds actually take place. They go through every possible outcome they can imagine and still remain exactly where they were. And while they continue to delay, 58 minutes, 5 seconds, the pressure accumulating inside them keeps building and building without release. This is not a promise that everything between you will find its way. 848 minutes, 14 seconds to a happy resolution. It is not a comfortable story or a guarantee of any kind. It is something closer to a 218 minutes, 21 seconds, confession offered from a distance. They are not claiming the harm has been repaired. They are not pretending they have suddenly found all the answers they 298 minutes, 29 seconds were missing before. What they are finally acknowledging, even if only within the privacy of their own mind, is 368 minutes, 36 seconds, that treating you as though you would always be there was wrong. They did not understand your value until they felt the emptiness that opened up where you 458 minutes, 45 seconds used to be. And when truth arrives this late, it carries more pain with it. 508 minutes, 50 seconds, because it arrives alongside the feeling of having lost hold of something that mattered. But what this means for you is more important than what it means for 588 minutes, 58 seconds them. Listen carefully here. This is not encouraging you to stand still and wait. 9,039 minutes, 3 seconds. It is not asking you to offer forgiveness before you are ready to. It is not pushing you back into the pain you have already lived through. It is 9,129 minutes, 12 seconds, only making visible the truth they failed to demonstrate through how they behaved. You mattered to them far more than they ever found a way to express. 9,219 minutes, 21 seconds. Your absence in their life is louder now than your presence ever seemed to be when you were fully there. And what existed between you was genuine. 309 minutes, 30 seconds, regardless of how badly it was handled by them. The real power here belongs to whatever you choose to do next. Genuine. 379 minutes, 37 seconds power does not rush simply because someone else has been caught by panic. 419 minutes, 41 seconds. And here is something that often gets missed entirely. The presence of desperation does not indicate readiness. 9,489 minutes, 48 seconds. A person can be in the grip of desperate feeling and still not be in a place where they are capable of loving someone with the care that is needed. Right now, 9,569 minutes, 56 seconds, this person is sitting with the results of who they chose to be when it actually counted. And results are honest things. 10 minutes, 3 seconds, they strip away the comfortable stories we tell ourselves. They remove the excuses we lean on. They show without sentiment exactly what silence cost. 10 minutes, 11 seconds. They are going back through old moments now, moments they once considered too small to matter, and looking at them through the lens of loss rather than the 10 minutes, 19 seconds comfort of pride. They remember the small and steady things. They remember how you checked on them without needing any particular reason to do so. They 10 minutes, 28 seconds. Remember how you could read their mood before a single word had been spoken. 10 minutes, 32 seconds. They remember how you held yourself together when they pulled away from you. 10 minutes, 36 seconds. They remember how you moved toward understanding rather than toward blame. 10 minutes, 40 seconds. And these memories press on them because they reveal something that is genuinely painful to sit with. You met them at a depth they had not yet reached within. 10 minutes, 49 seconds themselves. They pulled away from emotional growth. They pulled away from the responsibility that comes with a real and meaningful bond. For a long 10 minutes, 57 seconds time they lived as though distance was a form of safety. But now that distance feels like exposure rather than shelter. 11 minutes, 5 seconds. They feel seen by you even through your silence, and your silence has shifted in quality. Where it once felt like a brief 11 to 1211 minutes, 12 seconds pause, it now feels like genuine distance. Where it once felt like something temporary, it now feels like something that could last without end. 11 minutes, 22 seconds. That difference is pressing against them in a way they cannot ignore. They can sense that you are no longer building your emotional world around there. 11 minutes, 30 seconds, confusion, and their mixed signals. You are no longer waiting for them to catch up to where you have been standing. And 11 minutes, 37 seconds. This stirs a deeper level of fear in them. Not only the fear that you might say no if they reach toward you, but the 11 minutes, 44 seconds fear that they may no longer hold the same place of significance in your life that they once did. They are afraid that you may have quietly and calmly closed. 11 minutes, 53 seconds. The chapter without drama, without a final confrontation, without needing any answers to be handed to you. That kind. 12 minutes. 1 second of calm from someone who used to be consistently available is frightening to a person who depended on that availability as something they could 12 minutes, 9 seconds rely on without having to earn it. They are also arriving at another understanding. You never ask them to be without flaws. You only ask them to 12 minutes, 18 seconds actually show up. You never required intensity from them. You wanted consistency. You were not asking them to reshape who they were at their core. 12 minutes, 26 seconds. We're asking them to live according to the person they said they were. And now they can see with uncomfortable clarity how many times they reached for comfort. 12 minutes, 36 seconds, when courage was what the moment called for. They told themselves repeatedly that they were not yet ready. They constructed reasons for the silence. 12 minutes. 44 seconds justifications for the distance. 12 minutes. 46 seconds explanations for why the present moment was never quite the right one. But readiness is not a condition that simply appears on its own when circumstances. 512 minutes, 55 seconds become convenient enough. It is a decision that has to be made. And when you are offering love and honesty and your full presence openly, they chose 13 minutes, 4 seconds not to meet it. That realization hurts them now because the opportunity no longer feels the same as it did. They can feel the difference in you. It lives. 1213 minutes, 12 seconds in your tone, in the pace of how you respond, in the fact that you no longer work to justify your own worth, in the quiet confidence that has settled in. 113 minutes, 21 seconds where the reaching used to be. That shift changes the entire landscape of the situation. They believed they had unlimited time because you were gentle. 13229 minutes, 29 seconds with them. They confused your patience with permanence. They interpreted your care as a promise of endless waiting. They failed to understand that patience has its own natural boundary, and that self-respect eventually surfaces no matter how long it has been pushed aside. Now they are caught in a difficult inner conflict. Part of them wants to come back toward you, yet another part resists starting something they fear they cannot maintain. They want to apologize, but they are afraid of offering promises they are not sure they can uphold. They long for closeness again, but the effort and consistency that real connection demands feels overwhelming to them. So they remain stuck between approach and withdrawal, between being drawn to you and falling back into distance. That is why their energy feels so inconsistent, so restless and unsettled. Emotionally, they are pulled in one direction, while their behavior continues in another. They picture themselves being brave enough to reach out. They imagine saying the perfect words. They imagine showing up as a changed, improved version of who they were before. But imagination is effortless. Reality requires action, and action demands real transformation, not just intention. It demands honesty proven through repeated behavior over time. And this is exactly where fear tightens its grip most strongly. Deep down, they realize words alone no longer carry weight. You are no longer influenced by promises or explanations. What matters now is consistency, truth expressed through action. This does not mean your care disappeared. It means you have grown stronger in silence. You allowed yourself to sit with disappointment instead of running from it. You faced what hurt instead of avoiding it. You stopped denying the truth and began accepting it as it is. They are only beginning that same process, and timing plays a crucial role. Growth that happens after loss feels very different from growth that happens while connection is still intact. They know, even if they cannot fully express it, that things cannot simply return to how they once were. Even if they speak now, what was between you cannot be restored in its original form. That realization unsettles them because what they miss most is the version of you that trusted them without hesitation. Trust does not reset just because someone finds the right words. Once it changes, it reshapes the entire structure of the relationship. So now they stand at a threshold. Behind them is the comfort of avoidance. Ahead is the risk of truth. If they stay where they are, they risk losing you in a way that cannot be repaired. If they move forward, they must confront themselves without the protection of excuses they have relied on for so long. What you have been sensing is not imagination. It is a real emotional shift taking place beneath the surface. Loss does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it enters quietly. Sometimes it shows itself through emotional distance. Sometimes it is only a subtle change in presence that cannot easily be explained away. They feel that shift now. They feel it when they think about contacting you and realize they cannot predict your response. They feel it when they imagine you continuing forward, not with anger, but with calm clarity. That image disturbs them because it is beyond their control. They cannot influence it, cannot reverse it, cannot distract themselves enough to erase it. For a long time, they resisted what they felt. They resisted responsibility, resisted emotional honesty, resisted the vulnerability required for real connection. Now that resistance has turned into internal pressure with no outlet. They are not only afraid of losing you, they are afraid of what losing you reveals about them. At a deeper level, they recognize this was never just confusion or timing. It was fear. Fear of being fully seen. Fear of not being enough in a real emotional space. Fear of handling something meaningful without damaging it. They return mentally to moments where they could have spoken, but chose silence instead. At the time, those moments seemed small. Now they feel significant and irreversible. Meanwhile, you adjusted yourself slowly in response to what they gave you. You stopped carrying emotional responsibility that was never yours alone. You stopped filling gaps with hope. You stopped enduring uncertainty just to keep things alive. This shift did not happen all at once. It happened gradually, almost invisibly. And they may not have noticed it immediately because there was no dramatic ending. But now they see it. They notice you no longer rely on them the same way. They notice their words no longer shape your emotional state as before. What unsettles them most is your calmness. Because calm is not emotional noise, it is emotional resolution. It often signals acceptance. It suggests detachment from expectation. They are familiar with emotional chaos, mixed signals, intensity. What they are not prepared for is clarity. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are grounded in your own value, and that changes everything. Now their fear becomes more complex. They worry that coming forward would expose their lack of readiness. They worry that even if you listened, they might not be able to become what you would need them to be. They also worry you see them more clearly than they see themselves. And that is difficult to face when someone has long relied on avoidance. They want to tell you what they felt was real. They want to explain the silence. They want to say they were overwhelmed by emotions they did not know how to manage. But they are slowly realizing something important. Understanding something too late does not undo its impact. Good intentions do not erase experience. Apologies alone cannot rebuild trust if behavior does not change. And they know this. That is why they hesitate. That is why they remain suspended between who they were and who they might become. Growth is uncomfortable. There is no version of it that avoids discomfort. And they are fully inside that discomfort now. They feel the weight of missed chances. They feel the awareness of themselves in ways they avoided before. They also feel the urgency, not just to reach you, but to confront themselves honestly before the opportunity for change closes completely. You once reflected something back to them they were not ready to face. Now, without that reflection, they feel a gap within themselves. What you are sensing is not only their desire to reconnect, it is also their confrontation with self-awareness, which is often painful. Regret intensifies everything, and seeing your strength only makes their realization sharper. They now understand they cannot return as if nothing changed. You have not broken. You have not collapsed. You have become more grounded, more aware, more self-protective. Because of that, their respect has increased, even as their fear has also grown. They realize they cannot approach you casually anymore. Anything forward would require honesty, responsibility, and a willingness to abandon old patterns completely. You are no longer emotionally accessible in the same careless way you once were. The truth is, they feel unsteady because they do not want to return as their previous self, yet they are uncertain who they would be without their defenses. And in all of this, the balance of power has shifted. You are no longer waiting in uncertainty. You are standing in clarity. You do not need to rush because of their fear. You do not need to reopen anything just because they are finally feeling the absence. What matters most is your honesty with yourself. And if this resonates with you, then you likely already understand that the real question was never whether they feel the loss. The real question is whether anything real and changed will ever follow from it.